Funding for stress-free cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. What I want you to do is come home from work, put on your bunny slippers, pour a glass of wine, and cook with me. Hi, I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Welcome to Stress-Free Cooking. What I want you to do when you come home from work is put on your bunny slippers, pour a glass of wine, and cook a great meal with me. And today, our show will be all about recipes from my book, The Stress-Free Diabetes Kitchen. So let's get started. The first recipe that I'd like to do today is a pot pie. This pot pie could be made with chicken or turkey. Today I'm going to use chicken breast. So let's get started with poaching the chicken breast. So I'm going to take 2 chicken breasts and put them in a pan, and we're going to cover them with water. So let's just step over to the sink. Once you cover the chicken breast with water, you put it on the burner, turn it up to high, and bring it to a boil. But the minute that pan hits the boil, you want to turn the flame down, and you're going to simmer these chicken breasts for about 9 or 10 minutes. That'll be done perfectly. If you can let them cool in the cooking liquid, they'll be a little more tender. So while the chicken breast is poaching, you can start on part 2 of the dish. So we need some celery, some carrots, and an onion, and a clove of garlic. So let's first chop the clove of garlic. Put your chef's knife on top, give it a good whack, and the skin comes right off. And let's chop that up. And just give it a rough chop. Okay, so into the pan we go. Add a little extra virgin olive oil and saute that garlic until it becomes fragrant. Just enough to coat the bottom of the pan, maybe about 1.5 tablespoons. Okay. While that is starting to cook, what I'm going to do is chop my celery and carrot. Okay, so I'll start with the celery. Okay, so line them up, just push them close to the knife. Okay, and if they're not even, just take your chef's knife and just go over it one more time. Okay? They don't have to be perfectly even. In fact, I think in a pot pie, it's much better off if they're a little bit chunky. So into the pan you go. Turn that down a little bit so you don't burn the garlic. And then I have 2 carrots here. So I'm going to cut them in half first. Make it a little bit more manageable. And we're going to cook these vegetables till they're crisp tender. Now let's cut the onion up. So when you're cutting something round, it's a great idea to start out by cutting it in half first. So I'm going to cut it in half with the skin on it. And you see it has a stem end and a root end. So we're going to cut the stem end off, but leave the root end intact and peel it. It's much easier to cut if it's holding itself together. Now, once I have it peeled, I'm going to take the chef's knife. I'm going to make some vertical cuts, make some horizontal cuts with the point of the knife, and then I'm just going to slide my knife right over that, and I get a nice even dice. Don't worry about it if it's not perfect. Sometimes when you get towards the end, it's not so perfect, but that's okay. And into the pan we go. So let's do the other half. Again, take off the stem end, push that aside, peel the onion, And if the onion bothers you, if the onion makes you tear, you might want to consider sharpening your knives. Oftentimes when you tear up from an onion, it's because your knife was not sharp enough and the sulfur in the onion is more exposed because the knife was dull. Okay? So now we just let this cook a few minutes until everything is crisp tender. And what we can do is now start on the sauce for the pot pie. So our sauce is going to start out with 2 tablespoons of butter into a saucepan. Let that melt. We'll add about a quarter cup of flour, and we'll whisk that in, and then our sauce will be completed with some low sodium chicken stock. All right, our butter is nicely melted, so now what we're going to do is take our flour, about a quarter cup of flour, and whisk it into the butter. And remember, you want to cook this flour long enough so that we lose the uncooked flour taste. It takes a good minute or two. Okay. You'll feel this thicken up a little bit. So give that a minute, and then we're going to add our chicken stock to this. So it'll make a nice velvety sauce for our pot pie. And once again, you want to make sure that you keep a handy supply of chicken stock in your kitchen at all times. It's not something you ever want to run out of. It really goes a long way. Makes a quick soup, makes a quick sauce, makes everything taste better. If you're making something that you feel is just a little bit, needs a little oomph, add a little bit of chicken stock sometimes rather than water or plain milk, and you'll get a little extra flavor. So I'm going to season this with some salt and pepper. So I have my sea salt in a bowl, and I just give it a couple of pinches to keep it low sodium. So that was 2 pinches, about a quarter of a teaspoon. You can season as you go along. Don't forget to taste it. Some freshly ground black pepper. Everything's cooking very nicely. The veggies are doing great. Let's check on those. So we don't want to overcook those. We like those crisp, tender, so we have some nice mouthfeel in there. Keep your eye on your white sauce so that you don't burn it. Keep stirring, keep it moving. And when this starts to thicken up, I'm going to add it to the veggies, and then I'm going to check on my chicken and see how that feels. Now I can tell by just touching it. It's a little bit soft, so it needs a couple of more minutes. Okay, it looks like everything is just about ready to be put together. The veggies are done, chicken breast is done, and our sauce is perfect consistency. So what I'm going to do is add my sauce to my veggies. Okay, so let's take the chicken breast out of the poaching liquid and let it cool just a second. While it's cooling, I'm going to chop some parsley. Fresh parsley is a nice addition to anything that you cook. It gives a really good freshness. So let's just take some of this beautiful flat Italian parsley and just make a nice little bundle here and just start chopping, tucking those fingers down. Flat Italian parsley has a lot more flavor than the curly parsley. Curly parsley is really good for breath freshening. Back at the turn of the century, they used to use it to freshen their breath after a big meal. But flat Italian parsley is really the one that we want to cook with. Flat Italian parsley also lasts a long time, so you can actually wash it ahead and put it in a Ziploc bag wrapped in a paper towel. It'll last weeks. So get in the habit of keeping it in your kitchen, and you can freshen up or liven up with color any dish that you're cooking. Okay, that looks good. So into the sauce with the veggies we go. So let's take this chicken breast, place it on the cutting board, and I'm going to give it some cuts. Okay, so let's slice these chicken breasts up a little bit, make it easier to cut. It also lets some steam escape because these are a little bit warm. Okay, and then I'm just going to dice these up into bite-sized pieces, like so. And that goes right into my sauce. Now it will be hot, so if you have a chance to cook these ahead and let them cool, it'll be much easier for you to handle. This is a great family dish. It's also a fun thing to have your kids help you make. You can have them stir the vegetables, you can have one making the sauce, and then they love to put it together. And then you can even cut a little decoration in the top once you put the crust on top. And of course, this is, as I know it, has always been a family favorite. Chicken's nice and moist, so again, you poach it about 9 or 10 minutes. Give it a little feel with your fork or a spoon or anything you have handy, and just make sure it feels nice and firm. Let's grab our phyllo dough. So I have my phyllo dough, which I've defrosted in the refrigerator. When you buy it, it's frozen, and you don't defrost phyllo dough in the microwave. It'll make it very sticky. So you want to plan ahead a little bit and defrost it in the refrigerator. And then we're just going to unwrap it. And phyllo is somewhat fragile, but it really shouldn't be frightening to work with. It's really very simple to work with. So I'm going to cover this up. I have it all ready. Cover it up with something so that it stays nice and moist. Now that I have my pot pie ingredients all mixed together, I can put those in my pie plate. Okay, so into the pie plate we go. And what I want to do here is just even this out a little bit so the ingredients are evenly distributed in my pie plate. So this is just a standard 9-inch deep dish pie plate. Pyrex, anything you have. Okay, so that looks good. Now it's time to top this with our phyllo dough. In order to top this, I'm going to uncover the phyllo dough. And I will take some extra virgin olive oil and a pastry brush. I'm going to very lightly brush a sheet of phyllo dough. And it doesn't have to be perfectly even because we're going to do several sheets. Now it is fragile, so if it breaks apart, don't worry about that, because the fact that you're layering several sheets will make up for that. So put that on top of your pie plate and brush another one. Again, very lightly. Okay. And we use about 4 sheets, not a lot, just enough to give us that nice crispy top crust. So this is a much lower fat top crust because phyllo dough is very low in fat. We don't have all of that butter that we would have in a puff pastry or a pie crust. And I'm just trying to layer these so that all of the edges are overhanging in different directions so there's no open spots. So one more, and this time I'm just going to brush the top of this one because I want to finish with my last layer of olive oil underneath the top crust. So we'll put this on top like so. Okay. Now let me move this out of the way. Give myself a little more room to work. Bring this a little closer, and I'm just going to start to tuck these edges in, like so, just to make it look pretty. So just fold them under, and then this will be ready to pop into the oven. If you want, you can give it just a very light last brushing, just so you get some nice golden brown spots on here. The variation in the color will look really eye appealing, and since we eat with our eyes, that will be terrific. Okay, into the oven we go for about 30 minutes. So the next recipe I'm going to do is a great soup. This soup goes together in no time. And what we're going to use are all ingredients that we can keep in the house. So I have a combination of cremini and white mushrooms. You can buy these sliced or slice them yourself, remembering that anytime you slice something yourself, you actually get more flavor and more nutritional value. But if you need the convenience of buying things pre-sliced, pre-chopped, and it will get you in the kitchen, then by all means, consider doing that. I have sun-dried tomatoes. These were not packed in oil. They're just sun-dried tomatoes. I'm going to chop those up. I have some fresh tomatoes that I have chopped myself, but you could also use a can of tomatoes. So the can of tomatoes could be in your pantry. Chicken stock is in your pantry. You could also use vegetable stock. I have some water, frozen tortellini, and some fresh spinach, or if you want to make this a spur-of-the-moment pantry dish, use frozen spinach. So everything really can be kept in your refrigerator for a few days. Let's start out by chopping the garlic. So place your chef's knife on top of the garlic, give it a good whack, take that skin off, and then just give it a rough chop. We do this very often on stress-free cooking because we do use a lot of garlic. We want everything to be nice and fresh. You can buy pre-chopped garlic in the produce section. It's perfectly fine if that's what's going to get you in the kitchen. But you'll find that you'll get a lot more flavor if you do it yourself. So a little extra virgin olive oil in the pan, maybe a tablespoon or so, just to coat the bottom of the pan. This pan is enameled cast iron. It's going to take a few minutes to heat up, but what's really nice about this is once it heats up, it's going to stay nice and even. So let the garlic cook for a few minutes, few seconds actually, maybe a minute, just until you start to smell it. Once you smell it, you want to put in the rest of the ingredients. So we're going to add the tomatoes, the chicken stock, and the water. And once that comes to a boil, we just add the rest of these ingredients. So this soup goes together in 5 minutes. So while I'm waiting for my garlic to become fragrant, I'm going to chop my sun-dried tomatoes. Sun-dried tomatoes add a lot of flavor to a dish. They're a concentrated tomato flavor because they're dried. So nice bite-sized pieces, but not finely chopped because you really want to have some texture in this soup. Okay, let's check on that garlic. And it's starting to become nice and fragrant, but I want to give it another minute, or another couple of seconds, not another minute. Another couple of seconds. And the oil is sizzling, the garlic is fragrant. So now I can add first the tomatoes. Okay. So a 28-ounce can of tomatoes or 28 ounces of freshly prepared plum tomatoes that you've peeled yourself. 28 ounces of vegetable or chicken stock, and 28 ounces of water because this is going to be so full of flavor, we really want to add some water to this. Okay, so bring this up to a boil. So our stock, our tomatoes, and our water has come to a boil. We're going to add the rest of the ingredients. So tortellini, again, this is frozen tortellini, and you keep it frozen until you want to use it. So into the pot we go. And it sticks together a little bit, just break it apart. Mushrooms, so we have 10 ounces of freshly sliced cremini and white button mushrooms. You can buy them sliced if you want to. And then I'm going to add my sun-dried tomatoes. So sun-dried tomatoes. So this is a really nice, fresh one-pot meal. Baby spinach, and you could actually add more baby spinach if you wanted to. I'm going to put the lid back on here and bring it back to a boil very quickly. Cook it just until the tortellini are cooked and you are done. But before I finish with that, I just want to get my basil ready to go into the pot. So we'll take it off of the stems. And what you do is hold the stem in your hand and just go against the way the stems, the way the leaves are on the stem. Okay, so lots of fresh basil. You could add fresh oregano to this. Any herbs that you like, but I happen to like basil, and sometimes I do put fresh oregano in here. Okay, but if you're growing herbs and you don't happen to have any fresh oregano, lots of fresh basil will definitely take the place. So let's put this into the bowl, ready to go into the soup at the last minute. You want to add fresh herbs towards the end of the cooking if you want a really strong flavor of those fresh herbs. Let's let that cook, and we're going to go on to one more recipe, which is a scrambled egg tortilla with avocado and tomato. One last recipe for today. We're going to make a really quick light lunch or a healthy breakfast. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out, we're going to make a scrambled egg tortilla. So I have a whole wheat tortilla. I have 1 large egg. I have a plum tomato. I have an avocado. It's very ripe. You want it soft when you touch it. Avocados can take days to ripen, so if you really need it within a day or so, try and buy a nice soft ripe avocado. We have fresh cilantro that we'll be chopping, and then I have some low-fat cheddar cheese. It's going to go into the egg mixture. So let's start by cracking the egg, and you crack your eggs on a flat surface so that the shell isn't pushed into the egg. So give it a little bang on a flat surface. Into the bowl we go, and I'm going to whisk this up. Season it with salt and pepper, just a pinch or two of salt, and some freshly ground black pepper. So let me grab a pinch of salt, a couple of turns on the pepper mill. I'm going to start to heat up my nonstick saute pan, and I've sprayed this with a little nonstick cooking spray just to make sure that the egg scrambles very nicely. Okay, so once that pan starts to get hot, this goes into the pan, and then what I'm going to do is wipe down my cutting board, and I'm going to start chopping the rest of the ingredients. So we'll just give this a second, and while that's cooking, let's take a look at the soup. So our soup is cooking beautifully. The tortellini is almost done. And we're just going to let this simmer. We're just going to turn this down and let it simmer just a bit. And that will be ready when the egg dish is done. And let's put this egg mixture into the pan. I need a spatula. So this is just one portion. So it's a really quick, easy, light lunch or a healthy breakfast. If you think you might have to skip lunch, this is a great way to go. And of course, we're using a whole grain tortilla, so that's a better option for us as well. Okay, so let's just spread this out, let this cook nicely. And once it starts to set, you can lift up the edges and slide your egg mixture underneath. So I'm going to let this cook, okay? And while that's cooking, I'm just going to take a towel and I'm going to wipe this down, and I'm going to start to prepare the avocado and the tomato and the cilantro. So first the cilantro. So a nice rough chop on the cilantro. And I do have more here than I need, but I'm going to chop it and put it back into the bowl. And now what I want to do is dice my plum tomato. And I really don't need a lot because it's only one serving. Okay, so we'll dice the plum tomato. And now the avocado. So you take your knife and you just cut around the circumference of the avocado. And then you twist one half away from the other. And we'll just slice this. And avocado is also a great sandwich spread. If you have a nice ripe avocado like this, you can spread it on your bread or spread it on a pita or a tortilla and use it in place of mayonnaise or mustard or something like that. So I'm going to start by layering here. So onto the tortilla, I'm going to put my avocado. And avocado is a healthy fat because it's a plant-based fat. And then we'll sprinkle our tomato. And cilantro. Now, if you don't like cilantro, and some people don't, what you can substitute is flat Italian parsley. Flat Italian parsley is always a great substitute for cilantro. Take your egg, place it on the tortilla, fold this over, and that's it. All done. So a really quick, easy dish, and I'm going to turn this over so that it stays together. So a really quick, easy dish that's really healthy and delicious. Okay, so let's take a look at our soup. I have a soup bowl and a ladle, and we're just going to put some of this into a pretty bowl. And you can see all those great ingredients. We have the tortellini, the tomatoes, the spinach, the mushrooms. Oftentimes I've added a little bit of leftover cooked protein to this, so you could add some chicken or anything that you have that's left over if you're the type of person that would like a little bit more protein in there. So there's your soup. Let's check on that pot pie. So it's nice and golden brown, just the way we want it. It's always best if you could let it cool off just a few minutes before you serve it. The sauce will tighten up a little bit and it will cut a lot better. I'm Barbara Seelig-Brown. Thank you so much for joining me today on Stress Free Cooking. I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Funding for Stress-Free Cooking is brought to you by Cutco. Cutco has been making high-quality products in Olean, New York since 1949. Cutco's straight-edge blades are durable, flexible, and hold a razor-sharp edge. And by Melissa's. Established in 1984, Melissa's World Variety Produce is currently the largest distributor of specialty produce in the United States. You could depend on Melissa's for delivering great quality products in fruits and vegetables.
Enjoy Barbara Seelig-Brown's cookbook as she shows you how to make stress-free dishes in the comfort of your own home. Offer made by Stress Free Cooking for $19.95.